The War and Peace Report, as we turn to another top story today, the Ivory Coast, where supporters of the internationally recognized President Alassane Ouattara have captured strongman Laurent Gbagbo, ending a 4-month standoff that has left hundreds dead. Gbagbo had refused to leave office since the Ivory Coast presidential election in November, which the United Nations says Ouattara won. On Sunday night and into Monday morning, French and United Nations helicopters pounded the presidential offices and the palatial residence where Gbagbo had been holed up for days. He finally surrendered when Ouattara's forces stormed his residence, sending out an aide with a white handkerchief to signal his defeat. The Ivory Coast permanent representative to the United Nations, Youssoufou Bamba, celebrated Gbagbo's capture.
It is my pleasure to announce officially that the former president of Côte d'Ivoire, Laurent Gbagbo, has been arrested, is well and alive, and he will be brought to justice. The operation of arrest of Mr. Gbagbo has been conducted by the Ivorian forces. I repeat it, I'm clear about that. No confusion whatsoever.
Shortly afterwards, Ouattara addressed the Ivory Coast with an appeal for calm, urging militias to disarm and a pledge to start legal proceedings against Gbagbo.
Je demande à tous mes concitoyens de tout faire pour que la paix revienne.
I ask all my fellow citizens to do all they can so peace comes back for good to our country. Today, a white page opens in front of us, white as the white of our flag, a symbol of hope and peace. And it is together that we are going to write our history in reconciliation and forgiveness.
Although the political standoff has come to a close, Ivory Coast remains in deep turmoil. At least 1,000 people are thought to have died, and around 1 million people have fled their homes during the fighting. Many of the displaced have little access to food and shelter and are living in dire conditions. Thousands of Gbagbo's supporters remain armed and on the streets. We're joined now by two guests. Corinne Dufka is a senior researcher at the Africa Division of Human Rights Watch, joining us from Dakar, Senegal, and here in New York. We're joined by Elizabeth Dickinson of Foreign Policy magazine. Last month, she traveled under a UN Foundation grant to Liberia, where over 125,000 Ivorians have fled. Let's go first to Corinne. What is the latest you understand is happening right now in Ivory Coast with the capture of, the arrest of Laurent Gbagbo?
Well, it's not exactly clear where he is at this moment. President Ouattara said that said at one point that he will go to the north of the country. There are very pressing security issues that remain in Ivory Coast. There are a few thousand members of the security forces who, of course, were backing Gbagbo until the last moment, as well as hundreds and hundreds of militiamen who, over the last 4 months, have been committing very serious violations, who remain holed up in a number of different places throughout the city. So we understand that there are efforts to disarm these individuals, get them to surrender, and then disarm them. But first and foremost, there are very pressing sort of security needs to ensure that then the population who has been largely holed up in their houses without access to water and food can get out and life can start to normalize.
What about the reports of human rights abuses on both sides, on the Gbagbo side and the Ouattara side?
Well, absolutely. We and others have documented extremely serious abuses that have taken the lives of probably close to 1,000, if not more, committed by both sides. For the first 4 months, the vast majority of those were committed by forces loyal to Gbagbo, politically motivated violence in which they disappeared, killed, committed politically motivated rape against real and perceived supporters of Ouattara. As the Ouattara forces then launched a sweeping offensive that moved through the north and then central and east of the country, they also committed very serious war crimes, including killing, raping, burning villages, and so on. So it's important. President Ouattara is inheriting profound human rights problems, deep divisions along ethnic and political lines, and he must prioritize bringing individuals from both sides of the political-military divide to justice.